When you think about it, the number of surgeries happening globally is just immense, and it keeps going up.
It really does.
And behind every single one, practically, there's this often overlooked but totally vital piece of kit: surgical drainage devices.
Yeah, the unsung heroes, you could say, of post-op care.
Exactly.
It's talking about, those tubes, sometimes more complex systems that surgeons place to handle fluids afterwards, blood, pus, that sort of thing.
It's all about preventing that fluid buildup, right?
Yeah.
Which can cause infections, slow down healing.
Precisely. It's fundamental for a good recovery. They basically create an escape route for all that stuff the body needs to get rid of from the surgical site.
Got it. And for this deep dive, we're looking at a specific market report, one focused entirely on these devices globally.
That's right. It gives a really interesting snapshot, actually, where the market is now, where it's projected to go. It's surprisingly significant.
Okay, so our mission today is really to unpack that report, get a handle on the current state of play and, what the future looks like for this market. We'll hit the key trends, the driving factors.
Sounds good.
All right, let's dive in. First things first, market size. How big are we talking, and how fast is it growing?
Well, the numbers are quite striking. The report projects the global market to hit USD XX billion in 2025.
Okay, XX billion for 2025. And looking further out.
By 2033, they expect it to climb to USD XX billion.
Wow, okay, that's a pretty big jump. What does that translate to in terms of, an annual growth rate?
So the compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, is pegged at XX% for that period, 2025 to 2033.
XX%, that's pretty healthy, steady growth.
It definitely signals some significant underlying trends in healthcare globally.
Like what? What are the main engines really pushing this expansion?
Well, if you connect the dots, a huge factor is the rise in chronic conditions around the world, things that unfortunately often end up needing surgery. And just generally, we're seeing more surgeries being done, period. More operations mean pretty directly more need for these drainage devices.
Yeah, simple math almost. More procedures, more drainage needed. And the report mentioned the aging population too, didn't it? That's got to be a factor.
Oh, absolutely. As populations get older, you naturally see more age-related health problems that require surgical fixes.
Like heart issues or joint replacement.
Exactly. Think cardiovascular diseases, orthopedic problems.
Yeah.
The demand for surgeries related to those is definitely on the rise.
And this isn't just a general feeling. The report has actual data on this.
It does. The WHO, for instance, points out that cardiovascular diseases are a massive global issue. We're talking about something like 17.9 million deaths every year.
17.9 million.
Wow. Yeah. And that huge number inevitably leads to a high volume of heart surgeries, many of which will absolutely need drainage devices post-op.
And I think the NIH data was mentioned too, especially regarding older populations.
That's right. NIH data really highlights the growing burden of things like coronary artery disease, heart failure, stroke, especially as people live longer. And these often lead to major procedures, bypasses, valve replacements, angioplasties, all scenarios where managing fluid after surgery is absolutely critical.
Okay, so the picture is clear. Aging population, more chronic illness, more surgery equals a growing market for these devices. Makes sense. Let's shift to geography. Where's the biggest demand right now?
Right now, North America is the leader. The report says it held the largest share in 2024, about XX% of global revenue.
X%. What does that translate to in dollars?
Roughly USD XX million. And it's not standing still either. It's projected to grow at a CAGR of XX% between 2025 and 2033.
Still growing strong then, even as the leader. Why is North America so dominant here?
It's a few things, really. There's significant R&D investment in medical devices there.
Okay.
Plus, government policies often support managing chronic diseases, which indirectly boosts demand. And of course, the healthcare infrastructure is just very developed, highly capable of adopting and using these kinds of technologies widely.
Yeah, that infrastructure piece must be key. And the report mentioned the sheer number of surgeries in the U.S. specifically.
It did. It cited a figure of around 40 to 50 million surgical procedures every year in the U.S. alone.
40 to 50 billion.
Yeah, that kind of volume just creates a massive ongoing need for effective drainage systems.
And the money spent on healthcare there must play a role too. I think I saw a huge number for U.S. health spending.
You did. National health expenditure in the U.S. for 2023 was, well, pretty staggering. $4.9 trillion.
Trillion, wow.
Yeah, that level of spending supports a vast range of medical tech, including these drainage devices, naturally.
Okay, so North America is the current heavyweight. But where's the fastest growth happening? Which region is really picking up speed?
That would be Asia-Pacific. The report forecasts the highest CAGR for that region, XX%, over the forecast period. That's where things are really dynamic.
XX%. That's quite a clip.
Yeah.
What's driving that surge in Asia-Pacific?
It's a combination, really. You've got rising healthcare spending in many countries there.
Right.
Access to healthcare is improving, which means more surgical needs are being met. Plus, there's a real focus on developing medical infrastructure across the board.
Did the report give any specific examples, like for investment?
Yeah, it noted India's healthcare expenditure for 2024-25 is around USD 11.5 billion. That kind of investment shows a commitment to boosting healthcare services, including surgery.
And it's not just India, I assume. Other countries, too.
Oh, yeah. Japan, other Asian nations are seeing rising surgical volumes, too. And then you have initiatives like China's Healthy China 2030.
Ah, yes, I've heard of that.
It aims to broaden access to advanced surgical tech, which will definitely boost demand for all the related equipment, like drainage devices.
Okay, so North America leads, but keep an eye on Asia-Pacific for growth. What about the other places? Europe, Latin America, Middle East, Africa? How do they stack up?
Well, in 2024, Europe held over XX% of the market share. Latin America was around XX%, and the Middle East and Africa were smaller, around 2% each.
Now, growth projection.
Europe's projected CAGR is around 8%, Latin America around XX%. The Middle East is looking at maybe 10%, and Africa around 8%.
Okay.
So, they're not as large as North America or growing as fast as Asia Pacific, but they're still significant expanding markets in their own right.
Got it. That gives us a good global map. Let's pivot back to the why. We touched on rising surgery numbers, but what does the report pinpoint as the absolute primary market driver?
Yeah, the report really hammers this home. The single biggest driver is simply the increasing number of surgical procedures happening worldwide.
We keep coming back to that, don't we?
It's just fundamental to this market. Everything else sort of flows from that.
And it ties back to what we said earlier, the aging population, more chronic conditions like heart disease, orthopedic issues.
Exactly. Those demographic shifts and health trends just inevitably mean more people needing surgery. And a huge chunk of those surgeries need drainage devices for proper healing and to avoid complications.
So more surgeries, more demand. Pretty straightforward. But markets always have bumps in the road, right? What about restraints? What's holding things back, potentially?
The main one highlighted is regulatory challenges, that whole complex landscape.
Regulations.
Yeah.
Always a factor in healthcare. What kind of challenges specifically for these devices?
Well, the companies making these things have to navigate this whole web of rules from different agencies, different countries. It means big investments in R&D just to meet the standards, plus really tight quality control, tons of documentation, rigorous testing.
That's like a lot of hoops to jump through.
It really is. Getting approval for a new device, the report says, can be really time-consuming and difficult and expensive. The timeline can drag on and the costs add up quickly.
And it's probably not the same everywhere, is it? Different rules in different regions.
Exactly. That adds another layer of complexity. Manufacturers have to juggle multiple sets of requirements if they want to sell globally.
Okay.
It can slow down design, slow down development. And it can definitely be a barrier for, say, smaller companies or new players trying to enter the market. They might just not have the resources.
So these regulatory hurdles, they cost time and money, obviously, but could they also maybe stifle innovation a bit?
That's a really good point the report touches on. All that scrutiny might make companies a bit risk-averse. Maybe they stick with what's known rather than investing heavily in brand new, potentially groundbreaking tech if the approval process is so daunting.
Right.
Especially for smaller outfits, the sheer effort and costs can be a major deterrent.
It's a tricky balance, isn't it? You absolutely need the regulations for safety and effectiveness.
Absolutely. Patient safety is paramount.
But they can also slow down getting newer, maybe better devices out there. Okay, let's look at the companies themselves, the competitive landscape. Who's playing in this space and what's new? What's happening?
Well, the report stresses that R&D is a huge focus for companies in this industry. They have to keep innovating to meet what doctors and patients need and, just to stay ahead of the competition.
Makes sense. Are there any recent examples of that innovation mentioned? Anything cool or new coming out?
Yeah, a few interesting ones. Just recently, June 2024, B. Braun Interventional Systems launched some new drainage catheters, all-purpose and biliary ones.
Okay, what's special about them?
They have the special coating, TrueGlide hydrophilic coating, they call it, The idea is it makes insertions smoother and helps drain fluid more efficiently, so it's more comfortable for the patient.
Patient comfort, that's a good angle. Anything else?
In May 2024, Modelo was highlighting advances in their digital chest drainage system, the Topaz Plus Plus, especially for heart surgery recovery.
Digital. So integrating tech more.
Exactly. It shows how digital tools are becoming more important for monitoring patients after surgery, making care potentially smarter.
Yeah, we see that everywhere in healthcare. What about the actual materials? Any innovation there?
Yes, actually. In April 2024, there was a collaboration between IIT Roorkee and Univlabs Technologies. They developed biodegradable ureteral stents.
Biodegradable, so they dissolve over time.
That's the idea. For urology uses, it could cut down on complications like infections and potentially means patients wouldn't need a second surgery just to take the stent out.
That's clever. Really clever. Any other recent developments worth noting?
One more from late last year, October 2023. A company from Harmonics introduced a device called Harmonics Pure.
Go ahead.
It's an automated system designed to flush out the chest cavity after heart surgery. Again, focused on preventing those post-op complications.
Okay, so definitely activity happening, lots of focus on improving things for the patient, making things more efficient. Now, the report breaks the market down further, right, into segments. Let's start with product types. What are the main kinds of drains?
Yeah, it's segments by product. You've got active drains. These usually use suction,
Okay.
like Jackson-Pratt, Hemovac, Blake drains. Then negative pressure wound therapy, which is a bit different but related. Redefining drains. Also EVD and lumbar drains. Those are for the brain and spine, chest tubes, obviously. And then passive drains, which use gravity, like the Penrose drain, and an others category, too.
That's a pretty wide range. Did any type stand out in the report, like in market share or growth?
Yes, the active drains category, it held a noticeable share in 2023, and the report projects significant growth for them going forward.
Interesting. So maybe a shift towards those suction-based systems.
It suggests that, yeah, a trend towards more, let's say, proactive drainage methods.
Okay. What about segmentation by application? Where are these devices used most? Which types of surgery?
The main application segments are thoracic and cardiovascular surgeries, neurosurgical procedures, abdominal surgery, orthopedics, and then a general others category again.
And which of those is the biggest slice of the pie?
According to the report, thoracic and cardiovascular surgeries, that accounted for a significant chunk of the market in 2024.
Which links back directly to what we said about heart disease prevalence.
Exactly. It all ties together. The high number of heart procedures drives demand in that segment. The report even mentioned Teleflex's Plurivac system as an example used often in those surgeries.
Okay. So cardio is a major application area. And the last, segmentation. Where are these devices used? Which facilities?
That's the end user segmentation. Pretty straightforward. Hospitals, ambulatory surgical centers, ASCs, and clinics. Basically wherever these surgeries happen.
Right, makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up then. If you had to boil it down, what are the key takeaways from this deep dive into the surgical drainage device market?
Well, I think the main thing is it's a steadily growing global market. It's being pushed forward mainly by just more surgeries happening overall, tied to aging populations and chronic diseases.
And geographically, North America is the current leader, but Asia-Pacific is the one growing fastest.
Precisely. And we also saw that important dynamic, the strong demand driver of more surgeries versus the potential brake pedal of those complex regulatory hurdles.
Yeah, that regulatory piece is significant.
It is. But despite that, the competitive side shows lots of innovation. Companies are actively working on better devices, focusing on patient comfort, reducing complications. We saw those examples.
Like the biodegradable stents and the digital system.
Yes, exactly. And finally, we saw how the market breaks down active drains showing strong potential and heart surgeries being a huge application area.
This has been really fascinating. It's, like you said, seemingly simple category, but clearly absolutely critical in healthcare.
Yeah.
Easy to overlook them.
It really is, and maybe that's the final thought for you, the listener, to consider. We often focus on the really high-tech stuff in healthcare, right? The complex surgeries, the breakthrough drugs.
Yeah, flashy stuff.
Right. But this deep dive kind of shines a light on how vital these maybe less glamorous tools like drainage devices really are. Improving these directly impacts how well patients recover. It just shows how everything in healthcare is connected. The big complex procedures rely on the success of these fundamental supporting tools.